kolega sira hamrik dadaun iha Blenheim Palace nia oin. Iha oine anu kusira makne. Senti contenti liu bueng hira hare fatin antigu idane no Esplora to ihalaran.
We're going to go back 300 years to the beginning of the 18th century. Now at that time there was a war going on in Europe, and that will surprise nobody because there usually was a war going on in Europe over the years. This particular war was called the War of Spanish Succession. It was a war fought to try to prevent France from doing a kind of European takeover. I'm saying this from the point of view of the English and the English allies. The French might have a different view of things. But at that time, 300 years ago, France was the really dominant big country in Europe. The smaller countries like England, Holland, were very worried about what the French king, Louis XIV, was getting up to. So the war started, on the face of it, to try to decide which king was going to become King of Spain, hence the War of Spanish Succession. But really, it was a war fought by an alliance of countries against France to try to stop France getting too powerful and dominant. And the man who was leading the army, which was fighting the French army, was a man called John Churchill. And that's him on the left here, in this large painting. Now, John Churchill was a very successful career soldier. He served various monarchs and made his way through the army, and in his early 50s he was the head of the English army. Queen Anne came to the throne in the year 1702. She was a personal friend of John Churchill, and she was also a friend of his wife Sarah, this woman in blue. And what she did in 1702, when Queen Anne came to the throne, was to make him a duke. He became the first Duke of Marlborough. He became a Knight of the Garter. So he was made the first Duke of Marlborough because he was a very successful career soldier. But 2 years later, he was taking part in that war, and he wasn't just the head of the English army, he was the head of an allied army. Lots of nations, armies, that he was commanding, fighting the French. And the first big battle in that War of Spanish Succession was the Battle of Blenheim, fought in Germany in 1704, and it was a victory over the French. Now, that was not the end of the war. There were more battles, but the Battle of Blenheim on the 13th of August 1704 was very important because after it, the French king was no longer in a position to do the kind of European takeover that everyone was worried about. So he became a national hero. Queen Anne wanted to reward him. She couldn't make him a duke because she'd done that 2 years before when she came to the throne. What she did now was to give him all the land here, and she persuaded the English Parliament to vote in the money to build himself a nice place to live in. And that's how the palace came about. They started building the palace in 1705, and it took 28 years before it was completed. John Churchill lived in the palace for about 3 years before he died of his final heart attack in 1722.